Hello, and welcome to another episode of Capsule RX Podcast. Today, I'll be your host, Dr. Jovin. And today we have a guest that we've never had before. This guest is, I feel like, super rare in our profession, and I'm super excited to have on because this was one of the few careers I never knew existed until probably like my second or third year of pharmacy school. So I'm really excited to have this guest on here to go ahead and provide some insight about his career and about his profession. So with all that being said, welcome. And thank you so much, Dr. Ned Milenkovich, for being on here today.
Thank you, Jovin. Great to be here. Appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today.
Yep, certainly. And the episode today is going to be focused on pharmacy and law. So Ned here has not only his pharmacy degree, but also his law degree. And that's something where I know all of us hated having to study for our law classes and having to try to pass the law exam. But there's some really interesting and cool things that you can do with the JD degree. And that's why I really wanted him to come on and kind of attest to that. So that way, anybody listening, if you've been thinking about maybe doing an alternate career path or something that's different and unique, we kind of have a resource here. So to start off, can you kind of just provide a brief introduction about maybe like where you went to school, how you kind of got to where you're at, to our audience today?
Sure. Well, I originally am from Cleveland, Ohio, and I went to Ohio State University back in the Stone Age when PharmDs didn't really exist. They were sort of existing. They were starting to become in vogue, but you basically got yourself a BS in pharmacy, and then you went off and became a practicing pharmacist. And a lot of people went into retail, some went into hospital, and long-term care was also available. There were other settings too. Some went to industry, and I, in fact, went back and became a hospital pharmacist in Cleveland, Ohio, until I signed up for the PharmD degree at the University of Illinois, Chicago. And so in 1996, I moved to Chicago to pursue that. And then I did it remotely while I was working full time because they had that continuing career curriculum option for practicing pharmacists, because the whole profession was transitioning to a PharmD, and I didn't want to get left behind. And then subsequent to that, I went to law school. While practicing as a pharmacist, I was a part-time, full-time, nighttime hospital pharmacist at Rush University Medical Center while going to the John Marshall Law School. And so that's sort of how that was my background and my education. And then what the goal was for me to finish the law degree and then somehow create a pathway for myself where I would marry the pharmacy profession with the legal profession, because I just loved both and I wanted to do both. And so I ended up practicing as a drug and pharmacy attorney, and that's what I am today.
I'm gonna ask some more questions about that. We'll dive into that a little bit deeper. But before we do that, can you please provide like the audience like a brief explanation about your job title and what a day in the life is like for you as somebody who has that law degree and that pharmacy degree?
So I guess it depends on what type of attorney you are. For me, I've always been in private practice. So the day in the life of a attorney in private practice is going to consist of a lot of different things. You could be talking with clients about their compliance issues. You could be defending a client against a Board of Pharmacy investigation, a DEA investigation. You might be talking to a client about buying or selling a pharmacy or a business. You might be talking to a client about the fact that they're in a dispute with a vendor and they are about to be sued, or they're going to sue the vendor because the contract went sideways. You could be talking to a client about dealing with payer audits. So the universe is pretty vast. It consists of doing legal analysis, research, providing strategies for clients, or at least putting the strategy to the client and giving them some options. Some lawyers are in court. Some work in an office all the time. So it varies. But pretty much every day is different. You might be on the phone a lot. You might be on conference calls a lot. You might be traveling. You're certainly not stuck in a pharmacy box like you otherwise would be if you were, a retail pharmacist. Not that that's a bad thing, but that life is a little bit different for a lawyer.
In this profession. Okay, perfect.
Correct. Yeah.
And you said something earlier that I found very interesting. You said that you loved pharmacy and you loved law and you wanted to kind of marry those together. You wanted to find a way. So would you say at that time there wasn't really a need for this profession, or there wasn't really maybe there was a need, but there wasn't that many positions that were available. So you kind of like created your own, would you say?
Well, I would tell you that certainly it's far more common today that we see pharmacists becoming attorneys than it was back when I did it. People would just not understand why someone would go to pharmacy school, become a pharmacist, and then decide to go to law school. Well, some pharmacists, perhaps they have a career change and they want to become lawyers to be, family lawyers or estate planners or, do something which has absolutely nothing to do with pharmacy. In my case, I was always extremely interested in healthcare, whether that be becoming a pharmacist or a doctor or some other healthcare professional. And I also had this sort of, duality about me where I was very interested in the law. And I can remember people saying to me, why'd you go to pharmacy school if you want to become a lawyer? We do have an organization called the American Society for Pharmacy Law, where we do have a lot of pharmacists, a lot of lawyers, and a lot of pharmacist lawyers. When I say a lot, it's not really a lot, but it's, we tend to have our own little sort of subculture of pharmacist attorneys. And we all sort of know each other, and we all live in different parts of the country, and we get together once a year for continuing education, for pharmacist continuing education, and we get our legal continuing education at the same time, and we network. So I have and had a lot of friends who would, go into industry. They would work for, the big chain pharmacies in their legal department, and they were pharmacists. Some went and worked for wholesalers. Some went and worked for, drug manufacturers. Some worked for PBMs, likes of Express Scripts and Medco and Caremark and Prime Therapeutics, and Optum didn't exist, but the predecessors to Optum. And then, for me, I went into private practice, and I think what you get when you're in drug and pharmacy law, like I am, is you get a very narrow field that's maybe 3 feet wide, but that's 3 miles deep, meaning that there are all kinds of legal issues that surface on a daily basis for any number of clients that you couldn't even imagine. And I've been doing this for years now. And there's always something new and different taking place. Sometimes things repeat themselves. We get that. But, there's always something new that's happening. And, to be a pharmacist and to be able to understand the profession and how it works, and then apply a legal lens to it, is something that is unique. And we get a lot of referrals from law firms who have great healthcare groups, but they don't want to touch the drug and pharmacy space because it's like they don't feel comfortable in it.
It's a foreign language to them.
Yeah, it's a little bit different. So that's why we're here.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned that you personally work in private practice. What other practices would you say is available if anybody that's interested in this career? And can you kind of, if you can you kind of attest to the differences between them?
Go in-house, as we call it, and you could be working for a large company, or if you're working for a smaller company, you probably have more than one hat on. You may be doing things beyond drug and pharmacy law. You might be, negotiating real estate leases, or, negotiating the purchase of a business, or, whatever it takes to keep the legal department and, running, and keep the company running through the legal department. There are opportunities for lawyers in government work. They could be FDA lawyers. They could be DEA lawyers. They could be at CMS, Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. There's any number of federal agencies that have a need in the healthcare setting for attorneys. Stateside, you could be a board of pharmacy lawyer. We also, by the way, see quite a few of our colleagues who are pharmacist attorneys, while they have a law degree, are practicing as something other than a lawyer, using their legal background. I think a perfect example of that is my friend and colleague, Jay Campbell, who is the executive director of the North Carolina Board of Pharmacy, pharmacist and an attorney. He's the executive director of the North Carolina Board. Other areas, I suppose academia might be an area of interest. And again, I sort of touched on sort of the big ticket items, manufacturer level, wholesaler level, retail level, attorneys. And so those are some of the sort of top of mind. And the differences, well, I mean, I don't know what the differences are. I mean, it's inside. You're obviously probably dealing with enforcement issues. You might be doing policy and liaison type issues. Private practice, it's whatever the daily blocking and tackling is, and addressing the types of legal issues that come up.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. And I even forgot about the academia component because, for example, like teaching the law class, like that could be something that they're doing. And then also looking at some of the federal positions, whether it's through the FDA, DEA, different law enforcement agencies that could also use the help, because I'm sure there's a lot of cases that can come up with certain things. And it'd be nice to have a pharmacist with that law degree background as well to kind of help in those situations. So if you can, what would you say, if there's something that's the most common, what would you say is like a common issue you've kind of seen coming about right now?
We're seeing, I guess we see a lot of different issues first off. So, I mean, it's not one single issue that jumps out at you, but the most sort of pressing issue or the issues that we've been dealing with have been the public health emergency during COVID, some of the relaxation of the rules associated with pharmacists prescribing and dispensing. We see or saw, at least for the time being, a movement toward telehealth and telemedicine. That I think is a trend also that it should continue. We've also, we've been doing a lot more work most recently after COVID, because there was a lull during COVID of enforcement. All of a sudden, all the government inspectors and investigators weren't inspecting and investigating because people weren't mobile. They were isolated due to the pandemic. And so now the wheels are starting to turn on that, and boards are starting to come around again. So those are some of the things. And we're seeing a transition. We're seeing a movement within healthcare. Hopefully it benefits pharmacists and pharmacies, where pharmacists have really created a new role for themselves, like it or not, as sort of a central point of access for patients during the pandemic. And it has empowered pharmacists to do things above and beyond what they traditionally have done in the past. And I would hope that the emergency laws and the suspension of some of the prohibitions on what pharmacists could do will perpetuate post-pandemic. And I see pharmacies, those that are willing and able and want to participate in a more expansive role, a clinical role, of being more involved in healthcare. And hopefully there'll be some remuneration over that too. Hopefully the payers, particularly the government, federal government, will see value in the benefit of a patient frequenting the pharmacist for some things that they would otherwise go to the doctor for. Now, there's going to be a turf battle there, I suspect. Yeah. But I think pharmacists were like the number one heroes during the pandemic.
Yeah, yeah, certainly. And with more and more of a push to have pharmacists to have some type of prescriptive authority, I'm sure that could lead to more issues as well. Because each state is different. I think Colorado is probably one of the more advanced ones, if I remember correctly. But certain states just have certain authority for pharmacists, where certain ones don't. And having that prescriptive authority could definitely, it empowers us more and allows us to practice at the top of our license. But then that also kind of strips a little power from the physicians, and there can be some difference in opinions from the physicians as well when it comes to certain things, if maybe they don't agree with what the pharmacist recommends and whatnot. So it could get a little dicey, but definitely I could see how with more autonomy that we had during the pandemic, that could have definitely created more issues. But because of the fact that everybody was kind of locked in, we weren't able, or I guess law enforcement wasn't able to really track down or probably bring those cases up to the forefront. But with everything opening up now, as you're saying, that's kind of like a lot of the issues you're starting to see is things that kind of happened during that autonomy period during COVID.
Yeah, I suspect one could take the point of view where it's, someone might take issue with the more expanded role of pharmacists, but honestly, there's no replacement of a physician that's taking place. This is simply just another pathway for a patient to gain access to the healthcare system. I mean, I don't see it as any different than a physician assistant or an advanced nurse practitioner who is delegated authority by a provider, a physician provider. I mean, unfortunately, all that needs to continue to evolve.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're going to see centers of medicine starting to take shape in pharmacies, hub medical centers, where you might see a nurse practitioner in a pharmacy. You might even have some lab tests done in a pharmacy. You might go there to check your blood glucose levels, to get involved with smoking cessation programs, to check your blood pressure if you're hypertensive. Obviously, they're already going to get their vaccines. There's all kinds of things. Dietitians might actually be available at some of these more progressive pharmacies where it's impactful on people's lifestyle choices as to what they choose to consume. I love that 7-Eleven pizza, but it's not too good for you.
Yeah, it's not going to do the best for you. Your dietitian would not recommend that. Yeah, you bring up a great point. I personally believe that we're headed that way. I do see, that's just my personal opinion. I think that's like the way to, I don't want to save retail, but I think that's the way to improve retail or make it more resourceful, is to kind of combine retail and ambulatory care pharmacy, where you have that collaborative practice agreement with the physician. You kind of combine that with maybe a CNA or somebody there that can draw labs. So that way you already have all the labs there. You probably have CPA with some type of physician for these certain disease states. You as a pharmacist can go ahead and really dose adjust, go ahead and write the script, whatever, just do like a 30-day supply. Then if they need a refill, they have to see me or something like that. Like, I feel like that's the way pharmacy is going to head, especially for a lot of retail pharmacies, because it only makes sense if you're already coming here to pick up your meds. Why should you have to drive somewhere else to also go see somebody for your healthcare? Like, why not kind of make one pit stop for everything? And then it'll just make life so much simpler for the patient.
Yeah, I agree with you.
We'll see. Hopefully we get there. I think it's heading that way, but hopefully, because I know some companies are doing that. I haven't seen that too much in Florida, but I've seen that in the Carolinas, that there are some companies that have kind of already implemented a system like that.
I think some of the major retailers are probably embracing it. They have more resources and they can deploy certain assets toward that. Mm-hmm. And we'll see. There's some independents out there that are very progressive too. I have to hand it to some of them. There are a few pharmacies out there that have really embraced a broad band of healthcare services, obviously within compliance with their state laws.
Yes,
but certainly that's when I sat on the board of pharmacy in Illinois, I was a board member for almost 10 years there. These positions are board appointed by the governors of the respective states. We would grapple with legal and regulatory issues for the professional pharmacy, the Pharmacy Practice Act, the regulations. And so we also got an opportunity, and I do also separately at being in private practice, because some of our clients are national. So we have to look at literally 50 different state laws. It's interesting to see what the laws in the various states allow and don't allow. And it's really the profession, the stakeholders in the industry that propel laws and rules. But for, I say, this is my bias, but for the private sector, but for the industry pushing on boards and challenge boards to roll with the changes. I mean, technology is a perfect example. I mean, some of these laws that are sitting on the books in these states are arcane. They're inapplicable. They just don't fit anymore how we model things. The first time they hear it, they're like, no way. Second time they hear it, they're like, maybe it's a good idea. And then somewhere down the road, they say, we need to implement that. So I've seen it over and over and over again in the profession. So, and I've seen it from both sides, from private sector. And then, of course, when I put my government hat on when I was sitting as a board member in the state of Illinois.
Yeah. And that's a great point. That's something I know I kind of slack on as being in the state of Florida. I'm sure a lot of people listening probably aren't that active in paying attention to who our board members are for our state, because they're the ones who are helping to make the impact and the changes. And if they're kind of have more archaic views when it comes to certain things won't really change. So if we want to be progressive with the profession, we have to be mindful of the people we're electing and the people who come into those roles to allow our profession to continue to grow and prosper, because without innovation, we'll just be behind, and we have to keep up with the times and what's going to be coming up with all these different players coming into our space, when it's like Amazon and like tech companies now coming apart into the pharmacy or the healthcare corporation. We have to understand, like, technology is now changing. So tech is going to be a very vital role in a lot of the work that we do, and we have to make sure that our laws allow it.
And you raise a good point about pharmacists and the boards of pharmacy. I mean, I happen to know several of the Florida pharmacy board members, the executive director, Jessica Sapp, and some of the other people. It's very important, and I don't care what state you're in, it's very important for pharmacists to attend at least one or two public meetings where the pharmacy board convenes, to get a feel for the types of issues that they're dealing with. And it's a bit of a sacrifice. I mean, you've got to take time off. Maybe it's your day off, or maybe you want to take time from work if you can, to go sit and listen, because you're going to learn all about the day-to-day issues that are percolating in your state at the pharmacy board level. And if you really, really want to get involved, you might join your pharmacist association, your state pharmacy association, and you can actually be an advocate, either directly or through your association, and try to impact, changes that would benefit the profession. Because keep in mind, the board of pharmacy is not really there. Well, they are there for the pharmacists, but they're really there to protect public safety and health. Mm-hmm. And so they're your friend. They're the ones that license you, by the way, to practice, and they can take your license away if you don't practice the way you should, and do everything in between, like fine you, put you on probation, reprimand you, all that fun stuff that they do to people's licenses that makes them, stay up at night. But really, I think some of the greatest boards of pharmacies that I've known have been open-minded, listen to what people have to say. They don't always agree with you, but certainly I think there's enough wisdom on the boards in a perfect world where, decisions are made that benefit the profession while protecting the public safety and health at the same time.
Definitely. Yeah, and I'm glad that you mentioned that. That might be something I try to do this year is try to attend 1 or 2 meetings because I've never gone. I've heard great things about going, whether it's from mentors or fellow. When I was still in school, fellow classmates who were part of that student organization, they
Yeah.
would go. I forget the name of it. I know I'm pretty sure it's the APHA, but I think it's a specific acronym after that. And they just talked about how they had a great time, and it was just so interesting the things they learned. I just never did it. And so that might be something I challenge myself with. And anybody listening, whether you're a pharmacy student or a pharmacist, I would highly recommend that you do what Ned said. Try to attend 1 or 2 meetings if you want. Get in touch with me. We can try to go together because I'm pretty sure they're all in Tallahassee. So we'll have to drive up there, take a little trip. But that's perfectly fine.
Actually, I think Florida is one of the states that they move it around. So you
Oh,
might
do
get
they?
lucky. You might get lucky and not have to go to Tallahassee. I think they have them. I've seen them in Orlando. They've been in Miami, Tampa.
Perfect.
They do put out an agenda
Hmm.
before you can go to the board websites, whatever that state is. It's not just Florida. It's every state. Find out when they meet, what they're going to talk about, where it's going to be, and that sort of thing.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you so much. That's great insight. I had no no idea about that. I thought I would have just have to go to Tally, but maybe if it's in Orlando or Tampa, somewhere closer to me, that would be a lot more fun and a lot of easier of a trip on me for me to go attend.
Yeah, I don't know why they put the state capital way over there. It's like,
Nobody does. Nobody does. Especially because that part of the state is I call it Georgia because it's so different than the rest of Florida. I don't feel like it's really Florida. It's more
yeah,
similar to Georgia than Florida, but for some reason it's all the way up there. I guess they couldn't find the land anywhere else because it's so congested in Central and South Florida.
yeah.
But so let's say for all the pharmacy students that are listening, so that's majority of my audience. If they are interested in practicing similar to you, what would you say is the best route to go? Would you recommend maybe getting the pharmacy degree first, then getting the law degree? Would you say to try to find a dual degree program?
Uh,
What would be your recommendation to those people listening?
I get asked that question probably whether it be through LinkedIn
Mhm.
or, if I'm speaking at a university or whatever the means or the medium is, I get to ask that question a lot.
I'm sure.
And, I always pause when people ask me, they say, well, I'm in pharmacy school, but should I go to law school? And it's a really hard question to answer. You know, I, the last thing I want to do is tell some young person, absolutely go to law school because,
Yeah.
great things are going to happen. And then they go to law school and they're like, what the hell is that guy talking about? I hate that stuff.
Yeah.
So you got to do a little bit of your own homework, feel your inner passion for the law if you have it. There's a book by Scott Turow, 1L. It's older than dirt, but all of us read it. 1L is a first year law student. It's a little bit, it's a little bit exaggerated, I think, but maybe not so much. But it's if you want to know what law school is like, I guess, because law school is a lot different than practicing law. Probably like pharmacy school is a lot different than practicing pharmacy. You learn all this stuff. They put you through the grinder in pharmacy school. They put you through the grinder in law school too. And I took the NAPLEX. I took the bar exam in Illinois, and then when I moved to Florida, Florida didn't accept anybody else's bar
Mm.
exam because they don't do reciprocity here. So I had to take the bar exam again here,
Yep.
like 20 years later. So you really have to kind of do your own research. But if you think you want to do law, I think it's cool to do a joint degree, a dual degree. There's not too
Mhm.
many of them around. I
Yeah.
think I think there's one in Iowa, and there might be one in Pennsylvania. I'm not sure. You have to go
Yeah.
back. You probably
UF used to have one, but I know they did away with it. I think maybe a year ago or 2 years ago. They're
yeah.
definitely diminishing. I'll try to look it up now to see how many programs are.
I will tell you that, especially for a young person coming out of law school, it's very important that you get good grades and come out at the top of your class. If you go to an Ivy League school, maybe it's not as important, but there's a lot of law schools out there. There's a lot of competition. Unlike pharmacists, there are a lot of lawyers. And so you really want to be able to distinguish yourself from other people. So whether you choose to go to PharmD school first and then go to law school, either way, it's a long road. You know, people are like, I was like 31 years old when I got done with my BS, my PharmD, and then my JD. And people are like, this guy's finally done with school. You know, I mean, I could have been a neurosurgeon for that matter.
For that amount of time.
Not that I would ever want to be a neurosurgeon, but I'm just giving you an example, you know. So that's my humble advice for those who are interested in law.
Yeah. So it seems like there's Drake University in Iowa. So that's one. We have, what I see here is Ohio State, if they still have theirs. University of Arizona, University of Buffalo, University of Arkansas, University of Maryland, and University of Southern California, and Washington State University.
Well, Drake is the one that everybody knows about because I think they were like one of the first ones out there.
Were they?
Yeah. But that's a tall order. I mean, going to pharmacy school and then doing the JD also, those are two really challenging programs. But hey, if I can do it, anybody can.
I like that. You heard it here first, America. If Ned can do it, you all can do it. So really, when you say do your research, what would be a couple things you would recommend somebody look into? So definitely read the book. You said by Scott Turow, 1L.
Yeah, that'll give you a flavor for, I guess it depends why you want to go to law school.
Okay.
I think you need to ask yourself why you want to be a lawyer. And do you want to be a lawyer dealing with pharmacy issues, or do you want to go off and be a lawyer doing something completely unrelated? I think you can probably read up on some of the different careers that attorneys have. If you are interested in marrying the two professions like I did, I suggest you look at ASPL, American Society for Pharmacy Law. And I believe they have a student member track. It's not that expensive to join. And you gain access to all kinds of materials and information. And in November, you can come to our meeting and you can participate to the extent you're interested in it and learn the topics that are being taught in the continuing education classes, which are all pharmacy law classes. And see if you like it. See if you hang out with the people that are doing this stuff and ask them questions and just be a sponge and learn about what it is. You know, talk to people like me, I mean, others like me, and see if it's a fit. You're never going to be 100% sure. Sometimes you take a turn in life and you got to back yourself out of it and go in a different direction. There's no guarantees in life, as you know. So, I mean, but if you don't take a chance, and if you think you want to be a lawyer, then pursue it. And at some point, make a decision.
What would you say was your why for why you decided to go get the law degree?
Well, I don't know if it was a childhood influence or not, but my father he's retired now. He's 81 years old. He lives up in Cleveland, Ohio with my mother. God bless them. They're both alive and good. You know, I remember being, I don't even know, 10 or 11 years old and going to my father's bar admission ceremony after he got his law degree. He was an engineer, but then he went to law school. And I was just like, this is cool. You know, I think I want to be a lawyer. And, you know, that's one of those things that you think about when you're really young. And then as I got older, I still kept persisting. We used to do, I don't know if they do these things anymore, but when I was going through grade school and high school, they would have these career aptitude tests to see what your predisposition was. You know, they would tell you based on the questions that they would ask you is what career would suit you the best. And I would always come up healthcare and law. And so there's this duality. And I was like, truly, if you ask me, I thought I was going to be a doctor. I thought I was going to be a physician. But
Mm.
then I thought, well, pharmacy is cool too, because, that gives me, that will give me range in deciding whether I want to go to law, whether I want to go to medical school, whether I want to do a residency and a fellowship in pharmacy. And I chose the law. I mean, some of it was pragmatic because, I was like, well, this is a 3-year program. I already spent 3 years in the PharmD program. I already spent 5 years at Ohio State for the BS program.
Yeah.
It was getting a little tired of going to school. But yeah, so I mean, I don't know if that answers the question, but that's sort of how
Mm.
I evolved into becoming both a pharmacist and an attorney.
No, it makes perfect sense, having like a childhood inspirational moment and then also doing those career aptitude tests. I never did one in high school. I think I might have done it in college and also in pharmacy school, where they kind of like directed me in pharmacy school. It was like, oh, like this type of pharmacist career would probably be the most ideal for you based off the things that you like or the things that you want to do. And there was some truth to it. I'm not doing it, but there was some truth to some of the things that they said. And I could see that kind of being a guidance where it's like, okay, I have this moment from my childhood that, I saw this and it looks awesome. And then kind of life is pointing me towards healthcare and law. And I actually enjoyed learning about both. So why not do it? So that's kind of like a strong why that you have that made sense for you to kind of go ahead and take that chance.
Yeah, I'll tell you one of the interesting things about pharmacist attorney, or even an attorney without the pharmacist degree, if you're in this world that I live in, is you meet some of the coolest people, and we have become friends across the entire nation.
Yeah.
And we go to, for example, the NABP, the National Association of Boards of Pharmacy, annual meetings, the district meetings. You might go to like a National Association of Chain Drugstores or the National Community Pharmacists Association. There's a myriad of summits, conferences, expos where people go and they meet each other, and then they become friends, and a circle grows, and you can contact people if you have questions. The network, if you will, It's immeasurable. I mean, these people become your friends over a lifetime, and it's I don't know what it's like for other professions. I don't know what it's like for for doctors and engineers and other people, but I know that I am very grateful for my pharmacist degree and my law degree, and it has enabled me to do really good things for clients. It has enabled me to make a lot of friends. I have established, I think, a great legal practice, and so it's very fulfilling to have chosen this. And in hindsight, well, you can always say, well, if you were to do something else, or would you do it again? I don't know if I would do it again or not. I mean, I suppose there's other things that I could probably try to do if I really wanted to, but I have absolutely no regrets. And it's been a great, great ride. And just thank all my colleagues and friends and, professors and mentors. And now, I'm actually in the position, I told you that I got my BS from Ohio State. I sit on the Dean's Corporate Council at Ohio State College of Pharmacy. And now we are mentoring pharmacy students at Ohio State. They take a career class and they link them up with somebody who's, a pharmacist alum and then who did something different perhaps with their career. And so I'm able to give back and help them. And much in the way that I hope that our podcast today will be valuable to many of your listeners.
Definitely. And I've talked about this before in other episodes. The mentorship is so key because it's just like exposure. If you don't have somebody kind of championing you or pushing you, or at least providing you some insight about their career, or providing you some insight on looking at an alternative career path, or insight on just kind of following your heart or following your passion, not just doing what you're told to do, then you probably won't step outside of the box. So much of us, we lived our lives being within the box, kind of following the rules and just going with the flow instead of sometimes saying, you know what, I will take a chance and try it. And so that mentorship is always key. So I'm glad to hear that you're a part of that. And I hope anybody listening here can kind of be inspired by some of the words that you said today to kind of think outside the box a little bit. Or if you're still unsure, take a chance, go to a board of pharmacy meeting, attend the different student organizations that play a role with that to kind of help you gain more insight and maybe find a mentor through that route.
100%. I couldn't have said it better myself.
Thank you. Actually, I have one last question for you. If you could, for our audience today, what would it be like 3 takeaway points that you want to leave them regarding the pharmacy profession?
3 takeaway points. Well, I mean, the first takeaway point is remember that you are, a healthcare professional, and that, or will be one if you're still in school, and the public, is going to look up to you.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to look to you for help in connection with their medication, their healthcare. If you are passionate about what you're doing, while it might be work, it becomes less of a burden. You don't want to do something that you don't like for the rest of your life. The second thing is that I would say is keep your ear to the ground on the profession and be part of the change, be part of the evolution and expansion of the pharmacist role. And the third thing is get involved. Get involved with your pharmacy association. Get involved with some of these organizations out there and take interest in what is going on legally, strategically, and you might actually grow a new role for your company and be part of the solutions that they're trying to get around, whatever impediments they might be, in advancing not only the profession, but helping grow a business. And keep in mind that it's not just retail pharmacy out there. While there's a lot of pharmacists working in retail, and I read about it all the time in social media where people are not exactly happy. I mean, you don't have to be a retail pharmacist. You can be, a hospital pharmacist, a long-term care pharmacist, a home infusion pharmacist, a compounding pharmacist, a nuclear pharmacist. You can work in corporate America. You can work for the government. There are all kinds of areas of pharmacy practice that are not necessarily retail. And by the way, I'm not trying to poo-poo retail at all, because my wife, God bless her, I love her. She's a Publix pharmacist. She loves her job. She loves everything about it. But what works for me might not work for you. What works for you might not work for me. But everybody has to make their own decision. And ultimately, I think keeping that in mind is also beneficial for the profession, because we all grow and develop in different ways, and we make contributions to our profession as a whole from all different sort of subspheres, if you will.
Definitely. Thank you so much. Wise words from Ned that we're able to end this podcast with. So thank you so much. Greatly appreciate having you on. Before I let you go, did you have any questions for me?
I sure don't, Jovin. I just want to congratulate you on having a great podcast program. And I wish Capsule RX all the best. And I hope to see you guys grow bigger and bigger and bigger.
Thank you. We appreciate it.